Compact, ruthless, lightning fast. The MAC-10 isn't just a firearm, it's an icon. A close-quarters devastation, this tiny machine pistol has earned its reputation in movies, military operations, and the streets alike. But what's the real story behind this pocket-sized powerhouse? From its controversial past to its blistering rate of fire, we're breaking down everything you need to know about the MAC-10, its origins, its mechanics, and why it remains one of the most infamous submachine guns in history. Lock in and let's dive into the firepower of the MAC-10. With the Korean War coming to an end, many veterans found themselves returning to their passions, firearms being one of the most prominent. Among them was Gordon Ingram, who began manufacturing prototypes for the US military, including the Ingram Model 5 and Model 6. But despite his innovation, none of these designs could replace the famous and cost-effective M3 grease gun. In 1964, Ingram pivoted from traditional submachine guns to create something smaller, something with more firepower packed into a highly concealable form. Introducing the MAC-10. Chambered in .45 automatic Colt pistol and capable of 1,200 rounds per minute, the MAC-10 was a machine pistol unlike anything Ingram had built before. This pocket powerhouse was designed to be used with a suppressor, one of the key reasons Ingram selected .45, since the caliber was already subsonic, adding a suppressor made it nearly silent, ideal for covert operations. But the true potential of the design would not be realized until in 1967, Ingram met Warble. Mitch Warble, mercenary, former security advisor for Robert Trujillo, and seasoned OSS veteran from World War II, was no stranger to specialized weapons. After the war, Warble had founded Psionics, a company specializing in suppressors and sound suppression technology, providing these critical tools to the US military. Warble's passion for weaponry and his experience with covert operations made him the perfect ally for Ingram. At the time, Warble was preparing to showcase his suppressors in Vietnam, but after learning about Ingram's new prototype, Warble saw the potential for a game-changing partnership. He convinced Ingram to let him take the MAC-10 along for the demonstrations. The response from soldiers was instantaneous. They loved it. Recognizing the enormous potential, Warble quickly brought Ingram into Psionics as chief of design, and acquired the rights to manufacture the MAC-10 under the company's name. The partnership was a stroke of genius. Before long, they convinced an investment firm, Quantum Corp, that the MAC-10 could replace the 1911 as the U.S. Army's standard-issue sidearm. A very unrealistic claim. Nevertheless, Quantum Corp founded a new entity, Military Armament Corporation, MAC, tasked with producing and marketing the weapon. In 1969, MAC began manufacturing the M10 submachine gun, followed by the M11 in 1970. Despite initial hopes from designers Ingram and Warble, the gun did not achieve commercial success as they anticipated. While the M10 and M11 were well suited for specific environments, particularly in South American countries involved in guerrilla warfare, their adoption was limited. The compact size and high rate of fire made them ideal for close-quarters combat in dense jungle-like conditions, but they didn't appeal to the larger military forces. By 1973, MAC recognized the lack of broader market success, leading to the company ceasing production of both models. The rights of the designs were sold to Cobra, a firearms manufacturer that specialized in acquiring struggling designs. Amidst financial troubles and internal disagreements, Ingram and Warble were ousted from MAC, and by 1975, the company filed for bankruptcy, bringing an end to their military ambitions. Despite this, the legacy of the M10 and M11 lived on. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Cobra and other companies continued to produce versions of these guns, and eventually, when Cobra would be dissolved, they were manufactured under Linehead, with models such as the PM10 and PM11-9. However, these later iterations primarily served as civilian and law enforcement markets, rather than achieving the military success that Ingram and Warble had hoped for. Designed as an affordable and reliable machine pistol, the MAC-10 was constructed from stamped sheet steel, heavily influenced by the Uzi. However, this choice added weight. The MAC-10 fully loaded tipped the scales at 8 pounds, heavier than a loaded M16 at 7.76 pounds. While the weight was a downside, it helped to manage the brutal recoil that came with its 1,200 rounds per minute fire rate. The gun utilized a telescoping bolt, another feature borrowed from the Uzi, enabling its compact design. The initial prototypes used M3 grease gun mags, but later the company decided to produce their own, increasing profits. Not long after the MAC-10 hit the market, a variation was created, the MAC-11. Chambered in .380 ACP, this subsonic caliber made the Mac-11 a perfect micro-machine pistol, shattering the Mac-10's fire rate with an astounding 1,600 rounds per minute, enough to empty a 30-round magazine in just over a second. The suppressor on the Mac series wasn't just about reducing noise, it also provided a necessary grip point. Without it, attempting to hold the front of the gun while firing on full auto, you were liable to lose a few fingers. An essential attachment during the time was a nylon strap at the front, giving some control to the shooter. In modern reproductions, a front grip is a much more effective alternative. As for the stock, barely usable. Firing from the hip was often a much better option, making it a weapon designed more for close-range speed rather than precision shooting. Though the Mac-10 and Mac-11 never became standard military sidearms, their reputation grew far beyond the battlefield. Compact, powerful, and easily concealable, they became favorites not only amongst special forces and covert operatives, but also in organized crime circles. Hollywood played a massive role in cementing their iconic status. From 80s action films to 90s crime thrillers, these weapons became synonymous with high-energy shootouts and gritty action. Whether wielded by mercenaries, gangsters, or heroes of the silver screen, the Mac-10 and Mac-11 became central to an entire era of cinematic violence. Outside of entertainment, their accessibility and high firepower made them a choice for urban warfare and criminal syndicates, especially during the 80s and 90s. This, paired with their high rate of fire and poor control, led to their notoriety as much as their popularity. The Mac-10 and its smaller counterpart, the Mac-11, may not have revolutionized military arms as their creators had hoped, but their place in firearms history is undeniable. From the jungles of Vietnam to the hands of special forces and criminals, from the big screen to the streets, these compact, fast-firing pistols became more than just weapons. They became legends. While their insane rate of fire and questionable control kept them from widespread military adoption, their infamy in pop culture and underground circles ensured they would always have a place in firearms lore, whether as a misunderstood relic of Cold War ambition or the go-to weapon for Hollywood's villains. The Mac-10's legacy is loud, fast, and unforgettable.